Welcome to the No Horsing Around podcast. This is your weekly update. We're going to do some talking about, is Carson Wentz the MVP of this football team? Trade talk and so much more. Today I'm joined by Sam Sinclair. It's a really special thing for me too, guys, because the very first podcast I ever did in 2018, my man Sam Sinclair was my very first guest. So how cool is it to kind of circle the wagons, bring it all back in? Everything kind of comes full circle. And have Sam on here. Sam, thanks, man, for popping in.
Of course, Zach. You know, I'm always a text away. It's been 3 years too long.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I started off doing the Colts Nation podcast solo venture, and now Steven and I have kind of clicked up and we do the No Horsing Around thing and have a YouTube channel, all that good stuff. So Sam reached out to me. I thought it would be so cool. So first question I'll ask you, I kind of, prefaced that in the beginning here. Is Carson Wentz your MVP for the Indianapolis Colts right now? Or if not, who would be your MVP so far this season?
I think he has to be the team MVP, especially with the way he's played over the last few weeks or so. Even when the Colts were 0-3, I thought he was arguably the most consistent player. And you had to add all the context to it. Somewhat of a brand new offense for him. Coming in, he was missed all of training camp and preseason. He had to make time for his new receivers. But I thought, at least for the first month or so, he was probably the most consistent player. And I think over the last few weeks, we've all seen that his play in the offense has just skyrocketed. So I definitely think he is the team MVP through the first 2 months of the season. I think this offense, they're just now starting to get things rolling. I think they're really going to start peaking once we start hitting November.
Yeah, man. I mean, hopefully we get Braden Smith back this week. I mean, I don't know what the hell's going on with Braden Smith's thumb or foot. The Colts never do a very good job of explaining that to us, to be honest, Sam. I guess Jonathan Taylor could be my runner-up in that situation. He's had a hell of a season. I know he had a little bit of a slow start, but Frank, he seemed to not use them very well in those first few games. He would get hot, and then he would just go away from them, almost like he did at the end of that game in San Francisco where he just put Naheem out at the end of the game, and everybody's scratching their head thinking, man, why is the guy who's ran for over 100 yards and pretty much getting 5, 6, 7 yards of carry at will not out there to finish this football game off? Just want to get your quick thoughts on Jonathan Taylor and just what he means to this football team.
Well, that dude has just been a dominant force of nature over the last month or so. And when I was looking at the Colts offense, when they started 0-3, when you looked at how the defense played them, Carson wasn't throwing the ball as far down the field. And a lot of that had to do, with his injury. The team hadn't been together much and the offensive line hadn't been put together. You looked at how teams were defending the Colts in the first 3 weeks or so. They were putting them in a 10-yard box where inside the numbers. So they were confining them into a small area. And with that, the safeties are playing, only 10 to 12 yards back off the line of scrimmage. And that just doesn't open up a lot of lanes for Jonathan Taylor. And we've seen Carson is starting to throw the ball deep down the field. The defenses are having to play back a little bit more. And the lanes are opening up a little bit more. We're seeing a lot less, 6, 7 man boxes. Jonathan Taylor was facing 5 men in the box or more, as much as almost any running back in the league over the first couple of weeks. And now he's seeing liar boxes. The offensive line has been playing much better. Getting Quentin Nelson and moving Chris Reed over to right guard is going to help out a lot. And then once they add Braden Smith back, that's just going to add another dimension to this offense. But yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor, especially over the last 4 weeks, he's had over 100 scrimmage yards. He's been a dominant feature, and he's going to really help this offense out. But to your point about the 49ers game, I was texting my friend about that the last 2 drives. I'm thinking, why isn't he in for these key rundowns? Why is Jonathan Taylor not in? And I went back and looked, and Jonathan only had 1 carry in the fourth quarter of that 49ers game. And if you really think about it, that Baltimore game a couple weeks ago and this San Francisco game last week, Taylor only had I think he had less than 5 carries in the fourth quarter of those last 2 games. So I don't know what it is. What I thought it was in the 49ers game was Taylor had 2 fumbles in the first. I think he had 2 fumbles in the game going into that fourth quarter. So maybe Frank Reich didn't trust Jonathan Taylor to carry the ball. I think Naheem Hines hasn't had a fumble in his career. So I think it had somewhat to do with that. But I agree with you. You got to get the man the ball. Like, he needs to have 20 carries going in the third quarter, and he needs to get another 5 to 10 touches in the fourth quarter, because that guy, his motor does not stop. He's a lot like Derrick Henry. That guy gets better into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, 100%. He's a bell cow. He's one of those rare running backs that as the game gets going on, he never gets tired, but those defenses do. They get tired of getting, constantly hit in the face, smashed in the mouth. My only gripe there, Sam, was if you're going to do that, fine. Let's say ball security might have been an issue. I think Frank said there's a little something going on with Jonathan. Nothing to worry about, but maybe a little bit of a tweak of some kind. That makes sense to me. But why wouldn't you have had Marlon Mack out there? You would at least want the running back that could gain you, the most yardage. I'm not saying Naeem never has any good carries, but traditionally as a running back in the NFL, Naeem's not known as a ball carrier. He's not going to get you the tough yards all the time. He's a little bit better out of the backfield. He missed that just unbelievably wide open pass that would have set that game. My man would still be running wide open right now. It was a great play call, a great play design. And to piggyback off of that design, they just twisted that design at the end of the game when they threw the ball up, that 50-50 ball to Michael Pittman. They just did it with the wide receivers instead of the running back on that play.
Yeah.
Faked the screen, ran him down there, got him one-on-one. He grabbed it. But what I'm so impressed with that, Sam, is a lot of guys would have caught that football and just fell straight to the ground. He had the awareness to catch that football in traffic, come down, and score the touchdown and win the football game. Like, are we now seeing Michael Pittman Jr. as the wide receiver one that we all thought he may be coming into the season?
Yeah, I was texting my friend after that play. I said he's wide receiver one. He sold me because he's been dominant these last couple weeks. We've seen it. They're finally throwing him the ball deep downfield, and we're seeing those USC type plays that he made in college where they threw him the ball downfield and he went up and got the football. And it's been very impressive. And that's just something that separates the good receivers from the great receivers. Can you high point the ball in coverage deep downfield? And Michael Pittman has shown that the last couple of weeks. And, we saw it just Sunday night. Sometimes just throw the ball down there. They might get a DPI penalty. DBs will get worried. We see it with Rocky Sin every once in a while, but
yeah,
that's kind of a different topic. But that guy has been taken over, and honestly, it's made me completely forget about T.Y. Hilton. The first couple of weeks, I've completely forgot T.Y. Hilton was out of the lineup, and I think once T.Y. is fully healthy again and can play consecutive weeks, that's just going to take more coverage off of T.Y. Teams are not going to have to shadow him with two defenders. They're going to be looking to go to Michael Pittman with a safety over the top, and that's going to let T.Y. Hilton eat in the middle of the field and in the slot. And I think this offense is just going to open up even more. I really do think this offense could start averaging over 30 points a game once we start to get into November and the offensive line's fully healthy.
Yeah, that's one thing, it's kind of an ironic season. The year that we went 1-5 and we went on that run to make the playoffs, one of the biggest holes that we had was what Anthony Costanzo was hurt on that left side, right? And our line was completely different, Sam. It was just not the same offensive line. We can make excuses all we want. That's fine. But big players, have to be there for that line to be what we expected coming into the season. One of the strengths, getting Braden Smith back, as you alluded to earlier. But what I really, really like is the fact that Frank Reich is willing to play the best five. So Chris Reed has been unbelievable on that left side in the absence of Quentin Nelson. He decides to split reps. I believe he ended this game. I think moving forward, I'm interested in your take on it. I think Chris Reed's won this job. I think he'll be the starter moving forward. I don't know, maybe just to kind of save face for Glowinski, maybe they split reps one more week. But it seems pretty clear that they are a lot more comfortable with Reed out there than they are Glowinski at this point, Sam.
Yeah, and they were the difference in the running the football with Chris Reed and Mark Glowinski were just so evident on Sunday night. And I think Chris Reed has to be the starter. Yeah, like you said, they might save face and just say Mark Glowinski is the starter. Obviously, It's going to be like basketball, where you got that fifth guy that's a starter, but he plays less minutes than the sixth man off the bench. But yeah, it's obvious. Chris Reed doubled him in snaps. It'd have been different if it was 35-33, but this was 42-20, I believe. This is not even close. So I think the Colts definitely need to look to bring back Chris Reed this offseason as the right guard of the future, unless they're looking at Danny Pinter as the right guard. I think he plays more center right now. But another guy they need to look back is Matt Pryor. I think he definitely needs to be back as a swing tackle. Maybe even give him a look at left tackle in training camp next year. I I think he's been very serviceable at right tackle with Braden Smith out. But Chris Bowers talked about how he has kicked himself over the lack of offensive line depth. And we looked at the depth this year and we were like,
Yeah.
you got a lot of veteran guys, but are they good? And I think he's found two really good backups in Matt Pryor and Chris Reed.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and the thing about it is too, Sam, that it's kind of this revelation for their shortcomings in the pass blocking game. They're an incredible run blocking guys, right? Like, I mean, when Pryor and Reed latch onto you, I mean, even Eric Fisher, for as bad as he's been, as far as pass pro, he's been the total opposite when it comes to run blocking. Like, these guys are just destroying people. We've got now 5 guys across that line, whether you take in Braden Smith or take him out. We've got 5 guys designed to run the football and win football games that way, which is also going to open up that deep pass and that ability for Carson Wentz to really stretch the field. He's playing confident, Sam. He's starting to run the ball when he needs to. He's throwing the ball out of bounds when he needs to throw the football out of bounds. He started off a little bit shaky, but I'm not gonna kill him for that, man. I mean, the weather was a little bit crazy. I don't care what anybody says. I'm on this side and I stand by it. That shovel pass was a stupid pass, in my opinion. I don't care. I understand what he was trying to do with Zach Pascal being out there. It just, in that situation, in those elements where you need to score points, I don't understand it. I don't understand why he did that. But other than that, I mean, Carson Wentz this year, 1 interception on the season, and the Colts go on the run here, Sam, and they win several games. They make the playoffs. He's probably not going to win it because you got Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and all these guys. He's going to be at least a dark horse candidate in that real, MVP candidate talk as well.
Yeah, and I just think I'll go opposite of you on that shovel pass. I thought it was actually a good idea. I saw it during the game. I'm like, oh, there's Pascal wide open in the end zone. The thought was right. The play wasn't right necessarily. I thought that it's because he tried to shovel it forward like this, and the defender that was being blocked by Quentin Nelson, he was able to get his finger in there. If he would have thrown it overhand, I think he would have been a touchdown. And I went back and I've looked at it several times, and I think he's getting tackled by Nick Bosa around the ankles. If he just throws it like this, he's able to get some air underneath it. He could have thrown it to Pascal going across to the right for a touchdown or not. It was a bonehead play. We're going to get that with Carson Wentz. I think people need to realize that you're going to – Phillip Rivers last year, he was more of the straight line guy. You're going to get solid play no matter what. Where with Carson, we're going to get some ups and downs. The ups were the Michael Pittman throws on Sunday, and the down was that interception fumble that he threw. So we're just going to have to live with that. It's a lot like Andrew Luck, and I hate to make the comparison because, we miss Andrew Luck, obviously, but it's a lot like Andrew Luck. We're going to get those super spectacular throws, and then we're going to get the throws where we're thinking, what the heck did you just do there? So I don't know if he's going to be in the MVP conversation just because, heck, there's probably 4 quarterbacks at least in the NFL that should be in the MVP conversation along with Derrick Henry, obviously, who we're going to see Sunday. So I think he definitely could win Comeback Player of the Year, though, if he puts up solid stats. Obviously, the numbers aren't great, obviously, to look at. But yeah, if the Colts are able to win 10 or 11 games and he's able to be the key factor for that, I think he could definitely win Comeback Player of the Year award.
Yeah, him and Dak Prescott are probably going to be 1A, 1B right there all year long, neck and neck. Before you hop off of here, Sam, wanted to get into a little bit of trade talk. I know the trade deadline ends, I believe, in a week from today as we're recording this podcast at 10:43 on a Tuesday morning. Marlon Mack seems to be being shopped. There are several teams that are inquiring on him. I think the more that I've thought about this, Sam, I think I'd rather have a player. Even if it's a depth player, you're so limited on your back end with your cornerbacks and your safeties. I just don't know that a 6th or 7th round pick moves the needle for me. Maybe you catch a desperate team that's willing to give up a late 5th round pick, a team that thinks, oh my gosh, like the Saints want to back up or the Chiefs really need a good running back, something like that. But I think I probably prefer a player, but I'm very interested in your take on this and what you think compensation should look like if they're able to move off of Marlon Mack.
Yeah, they're kind of caught in a tough spot right now, just because it's just hard to trade running backs. It's very easy to go find them in free agency. You go look at the 49ers last night or the other night. They Picked up Elijah Mitchell, I think, out of free agency, and he rushed for 100 yards on Sunday night. So
Yeah.
it's just hard to trade running backs. So, I mean, the Patriots did it earlier in the offseason, but that was because the Rams had literally lost like their top 2 running backs. And they traded like, what was it, like a conditional 6th round pick? Like, what's that going to do for the Colts? That's going to add another Sean Davis to the roster. I mean, let's be real here. A 6th round pick is not going to do much for the Colts nowadays. The roster is pretty well, has a lot of depth to it. I think I agree with you that they need to go after a player, but the issue is here, we're in week 8 now. Most of the 53-man rosters in the NFL are pretty much set. I mean, there's some spots that are changing every once in a while. Obviously, this is the NFL, but it's just hard to find a player-for-player trade because teams are pretty much settled on their 53-man roster to this point. We're almost in November now, and I just think it's going to be very hard for the Colts to find a trade partner. I would much rather them just keep him at this point. We don't know what the heck is going on with Jordan Wilkins. I think he's supposed to be back this week, but still, Jonathan Taylor, you lose Jonathan Taylor, God forbid, to an injury. Now Naheem Hines and Jordan Wilkins are going to have to be the lead backs if Marlon Mack is not here. So I think Marlon Mack could be a very capable running back. Obviously, it's very tough to get him snaps nowadays. But it's just going to be fine. It's going to be tough to find a trade partner just because of the compensation. You're not going to get a whole lot. It's not going to be worthwhile probably. And teams are pretty much settled on their 53-man rosters to where it's going to be tough to do a player-for-player trade.
Sam, is there anybody else kind of low level on our team? Like, let's just say like maybe a Ben Banagou, somebody like that you think the Colts might try to shop here at the end just because they know they're not going to bring them back and they know if they can get anything, they would just take them, just to get something back in return instead of letting him just freely walk. I can't think of a whole lot of players, to be honest with you, but Banagou's one that comes to mind. He doesn't play a lot. They seem to only use him in that NASCAR package. They don't want to use him in the run game, and, for obvious reasons, they don't want to use him in the run game. Is there anybody else that just pops in your head you think, I would probably be willing to move on from this guy, if the price was right?
Yeah, I think Ben Banagou is probably the only name I can think of, really. And I think that's actually a really interesting idea, honestly, because he played no snaps Sunday night. And I know the game script and the game flow and how the game was playing out, it just wasn't a factor for him. But Ben has just been a non-factor this year so far. And I think I don't think they're going to go out and willingly trade him, but if a team comes in and offers a 5th-round pick for him or a 6th-round pick for him, I think you got to take it because the guy's playing less than 10 snaps a game. If you're able to get a 6th-round pick, I mean, heck, that might end up being a guy like on Michael Strawn or something like that. And here I am talking about how you can get a possible rotational player in the 6th round after just saying a 6th-round pick doesn't mean anything. But, yeah, I'm looking at the roster right now. Other than Ben Banagou, I mean, maybe Isaac Rochelle. Do teams want to trade for a veteran defensive end? I mean, he played a lot on Sunday. I don't know. Maybe
Tyquan
Michael
Lewis?
Strawn. Who were you saying?
Tyquan Lewis? Do you think that might be a
No,
buzz?
I think he's been really good at the 3-tech once they go to sub package, and I think that guy in that 2018 class, other than Quentin Nelson, obviously he's got to get his extension. I think Tyquan Lewis might be in line for an extension if he keeps this up. I think he's been very solid as that 3-tech subbed in for Grover Stewart. Looking on the offensive side, I don't know, maybe Michael Strawn. The Colts obviously they like what they see in him. They kept him on 53-man roster and dressed him Sunday, but didn't play him. Maybe Desmond Patman. I mean, those are 2 guys that aren't playing in the receiver group that, are young guys that have elite traits that teams could be interested in. There's not a whole lot. I mean, Marlon Mack, maybe Jordan Wilkins. I mean, maybe a team is more interested in Jordan Wilkins than Marlon Mack. I don't know. There's not a whole lot. This roster has got a lot of good pieces, but not a whole lot of depth, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of am one of those guys that, I know getting people late in the season, Sam, usually doesn't work out. But for what we got depth-wise, I'd probably like to see Denard, a guy that we brought in last week on the practice squad. He's a veteran guy, and he's also a guy who was a future, a former first-round pick. Just to see what you got there. I mean, I'm not expecting, I don't have huge high hopes for him, but ever so often a guy finds, a change of scenery, new culture, his mind changes, he gets older and he's able to contribute to a football team a little bit better. So I would like to see Denard maybe get a few snaps, especially if we're going to be lean. I mean, and it seems like every week, Xavier Rhodes is questionable. Every week he tweaks something in the middle of the game, and every week he seems to come back and just gut it out. Everybody loved that interception he had, and kudos for Xavier Rhodes. But that ball, my man, it just fell right in his hands. You know what I mean? Like it was just. Let's be honest, Xavier Rhodes was not playing great in that game. He was just at the right place at the right time. And I said it before the game, Sam, the best thing that can happen to our cornerbacks and our defensive backs right now is this weather. There's only so much you can do in this weather, and it really kind of masked our, inefficiency or inability, I should say, to be able to cover anybody. We just haven't found anybody. And the guy that just drives me nuts, you mentioned him earlier, Rock Yassin, has been our best corner, but he can't stay on the field. So it's just one of those weird things. And that's another thing, Chris Ballard, for all that he's done good, in my opinion, he struck out at cornerback and he struck out at pass rusher so far. Now, I know he tried to go with Quiddy this year, and Dio may be coming back. He's just not hit on those guys, and he's taken those guys pretty early, and what happens is, in my opinion, Sam, when you trade out of the first round and you go back and you take a Rock Yassin, when there's like a Montez Sweat sitting right there at 26, you open yourself up for criticism, right? Like that's just who we are. That's fandom. That's any fan, community. I don't care what team you play for. When you start trading better position in the draft for a worse position and you don't hit on those positions, well, then it didn't matter then, right? Like it doesn't matter. I got to hit on those compensatory picks that I get for what I'm giving up, or it makes no sense to trade in the first place.
Yeah. And it's just, obviously with the Montez Sweat situation, he had a heart condition. I mean, that's a red flag. I could give Ballard some flack on that, but yeah, like it's been a big factor for me this year. Is there's just been no consistent pass rush at all, especially on the edge. And Ballard has missed on Kamoka Toure. He's missed on Ben Banogu so far. And to this point, I mean, Kwity Paye has not done anything. I mean, he's gotten a few pressures, but I mean, he hadn't gotten home yet. And maybe he turns it around. Maybe he ends up being a 10-sack guy in the future, but he hasn't done it right now. And it's just going to be interesting, especially, at corner when Xavier Rhodes went out. I mean, they were down to 3 corners, and I think they were down to 2 safeties. I mean, that's getting really thin there. So, yeah, I would if Rock Ya-Sin cannot be up for this game Sunday, they have to bring Denard up to the roster because they're going to be facing a pretty good pass offense in the Tennessee Titans with A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. Derrick Henry's been getting the ball in the pass game a lot, and Ryan Tannehill has been really good getting them the ball. So they're definitely going to have to look to bring up Denard if Ya-Sin or even Xavier Rhodes doesn't play on Sunday.
Yeah, 100%, man. So, guys, we're asking you to like, rate, review, share, subscribe. As it says down the bottom of the screen, join the No Horsing Around family. We're 560 subscribers on YouTube right now. Our goal is 600 by the end of week 9. So, 40 people, do whatever you got to do. We're so thankful for you guys. I want you to light us up in the comments. Let us know what you liked about what I said, what Sam liked. If there's something you disagreed with, let us both know, man. We love having a good, open, healthy conversation. This one's been fun, Sam. Thank you so much for hopping on, man. And we'll see you around the way. Maybe after the trade deadline comes on, I'll have you back on, and maybe we'll analyze what we had talked about this week. How's that sound?
Oh, boy. We'll see if these takes hold up over the next 2 weeks.
We'll see. Thanks so much, Sam.